Most people think quitting alcohol is about willpower or just being healthier. But the moment you stop drinking, your body doesn't wait to start repairing itself. It starts changing within hours because alcohol isn't fuel your body can use. It's a chemical your liver and brain have to work around every time it shows up. And when that interruption disappears, systems that have been quietly compensating in the background begin sliding back toward their natural settings, often before you feel any different on the surface. Today, we're going to walk through what's actually happening inside your body when you stop drinking alcohol. We'll start with what changes in the first few hours, then move into the first few days and weeks, and what continues to shift over the following months. Some of these changes are subtle chemistry shifts, enzymes, hormones, and brain signals quietly rebalancing. And some are surprisingly powerful in how they show up in your sleep, energy, and long-term health. Because this isn't just about detox. It's about what your body is wired to do once it's not constantly busy processing alcohol. And by the end, you'll see how a decision that feels small on the surface can create changes that feel completely different over time. In the first 6 hours after your last drink, your body starts shifting away from processing alcohol and back toward its normal priorities. As alcohol levels in your blood begin to fall, enzymes in your liver that were focused on breaking it down can gradually return to their usual jobs, helping regulate things like blood sugar and how you handle fats. Think of it like a factory that's been forced to deal with one urgent shipment all night and can finally get back to running the rest of the operation. Biologically, your body was never designed to process alcohol around the clock. It's designed to keep you in balance, and alcohol temporarily pulls resources away from that. Between 6 and 12 hours after your last drink, your sleep biology is already starting to shift, even if it feels like a normal night. Alcohol boosts calming GABA signals and suppresses glutamate, two brain chemicals that control how switched on or switched off your nervous system is. So you feel drowsy at first, but pay for it with lighter, more disrupted sleep later in the night. As the alcohol clears from your system, your brain begins moving back toward its natural balance between these chemicals and your normal sleep stages, which is the foundation for deeper, more restorative rest over the coming days. Sleep is when your body does a lot of its repair work, immune function, brain cleanup, hormone regulation, and this rebalancing is what allows that process to gradually become more efficient again. The interesting part is that most people still wake up feeling roughly the same at first, even though their brain chemistry and sleep architecture have already started to change. Between 12 and 24 hours after your last drink, this is where subtle stability starts to return. Alcohol acts as a diuretic, so once it's out of your system, your kidneys can shift back toward normal fluid balance, and your body can start rehydrating properly again. At the same time, without alcohol interfering with how your liver handles glucose, your blood sugar can begin to swing less and move back toward a steadier range. When you have alcohol in your system, your liver prioritizes breaking it down and becomes less effective at its usual job of releasing sugar into the blood or storing it away, which is why cutting alcohol gives your blood sugar control a chance to stabilize again. From a biological standpoint, your body is always trying to keep things in equilibrium, and taking alcohol out of the picture simply makes that balancing act easier. Between 24 and 48 hours after your last drink, your brain chemistry is already starting to move back toward its usual balance. When you drink, alcohol temporarily boosts GABA, an inhibitory neurotransmitter, and also increases dopamine in your brain's reward pathways, while turning down excitatory glutamate, which is why you feel relaxed and a bit buzzed. Over time, your brain adapts by actively compensating for that artificial calm, dialing down its own GABA activity and making excitatory signals more prominent. So when you stop drinking, those systems have to recalibrate before things feel fully steady again. When alcohol is no longer being consumed, those neurotransmitter systems begin shifting back toward their natural baseline. And over time, a steadier internal signal instead of spikes and dips. And this is where some people start to notice something unexpected. Not a huge surge of energy, but a slightly calmer, more stable sense of focus and mood beginning to come through in the days ahead. Between 48 and 72 hours after your last drink, many people start to notice that their sleep is slowly becoming more restorative, even if it isn't perfect yet. With alcohol out of the way, your brain can begin returning to a more natural pattern of sleep stages, spending more time in deep sleep and REM instead of the lighter, fragmented sleep that often follows drinking. Think of it like finally getting a proper charge instead of constantly topping up a low battery. Biologically, this is where your body can start catching up on some of the recovery work that was being interrupted. everything from brain cleanup and memory processing to immune and hormone regulation. By the end of the first week without alcohol, this is where the changes usually start to feel more noticeable. For many people, sleep becomes more consistent, morning grogginess eases, energy feels steadier across the day, and things like bloating or heartburn can start to settle as the gut lining has fewer irritations to deal with. Your body is now running with fewer interruptions, from liver metabolism to gut motility to stress and sleep hormones, which lets multiple systems coordinate the way they're designed to instead of constantly compensating. Between weeks 2 and 4, the changes begin to go deeper than how you feel day to day. Inside the body, insulin sensitivity often starts to improve, so your system gets better at responding to insulin and keeping blood sugar in a healthier range. And your liver is under less constant pressure to process alcohol and can focus more on clearing fats and repairing earlier stress. This is where underlying processes start to improve, not just the surface level symptoms you notice in your mood or sleep. And this is the point where many people underestimate what's happening, because some of the biggest wins, like better metabolic health, less liver fat, and lower long-term strain on your heart and blood vessels, aren't always immediately visible from the outside. After 2 to 3 months without alcohol, your body often starts to feel more consistent from day to day. With fewer alcohol-related spikes in heart rate and stress chemistry, blood pressure has a better chance to trend downward, and stress hormones like cortisol can begin to follow a more natural daily pattern instead of constantly being nudged off course. Your body is always aiming for stability, what we call homeostasis, and taking alcohol out of the regular routine reduces the need for those constant corrections across your cardiovascular, metabolic, and stress response systems. For many people, this is when they notice that energy and mood feel more predictable across the day, not necessarily higher all the time, but less up and down and easier to manage. After 4 to 6 months without alcohol, the small changes you've made really start to compound. If alcohol was quietly adding extra calories or disrupting how your body handles sugar and fats, staying off it over this period can support gradual shifts in body composition and ongoing improvements in markers like blood pressure and resting heart rate. Your body is now running with far fewer repeated disruptions, which lets long-term systems like metabolism, vascular health, and even hormone signaling work more efficiently instead of constantly playing catch-up. And this is where the progress often starts to feel more tangible. Clothes fit differently, workouts feel smoother, recovery feels faster, even though the foundation for those changes has been building quietly in the background for months. Between 6 and 12 months without alcohol is when changes in your brain and behavior often become much more obvious. Without that repeated dose of alcohol, your brain's reward circuits get less practice linking feel-good signals to drinking. So those old triggers and automatic urges tend to weaken over time rather than fire as strongly as they used to. Your brain is shifting back toward a more natural balance, less driven by repeated artificial dopamine spikes from alcohol and more responsive to everyday rewards like movement, connection, and progress. And this is where a lot of people notice that the habit itself feels less automatic and more like an actual choice, which is a very different experience than feeling pulled toward a drink on autopilot. With less alcohol consumption long-term, you'll start to reap the rewards of better internal health. With less exposure over years rather than weeks, your risk for conditions like high blood pressure, alcohol-related liver disease, and certain alcohol-linked cancers gradually moves in a healthier direction compared with regular alcohol use. Your body is no longer having to continually repair the same kind of damage, which allows long-term processes like liver repair, vascular health, and cell growth to shift away from damage control and toward genuine maintenance and protection. And this is where the real impact builds, not from one dramatic moment, but from the quiet consistency of everything that no longer needs to be undone every time you drink. But here's what most people never realize. For casual drinkers, the biggest benefit isn't what happens when you quit alcohol. It's what stops happening every time you drink. Each time alcohol enters your system, your body shifts its priorities, your sleep becomes more fragmented, and multiple systems have to adjust in the background. Think of it like a small disruption that keeps repeating, even if it doesn't feel significant in the moment. Your body is constantly working to maintain balance, and removing that repeated interruption allows it to operate more consistently. And this is where the real difference comes from, not a single change, but from what no longer needs to happen over and over again. You don't have to quit forever to start seeing these changes. Even reducing how often you drink can begin to shift how your body responds over time. If you've ever taken a break from drinking, what did you notice first? Was it your sleep, your mood, or something you didn't expect? Let us know in the comments. And if you found this video helpful, make sure you're subscribed to The Wellness Method. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.